great to be here, and I feel at home here because I come from Munich, but I'm also something of an exotic figure because I've been hearing a lot about creativity, which I appreciate, but I stand for something which is often forgotten, and that's how to reach your readers. I've been doing this, I've been thinking about this for decades, and I still do it very, very passionately, and I'd like to share this passion with you. So, allow me to talk to you as someone representing a niche. So, you introduced our company already. Yes, we started out as a wholesaler in Munich after World War II. We're based in Munich. Then we survived a number of crises. And then Germany said, okay, we want to have freedom of speech and wholesale press business without any discrimination. Regional monopoly structures were set up. Well, in Austria it was a bit different. So you were assigned a monopoly, and I was assigned, or we were assigned the Upper Bavaria Munich area, and then you came to be press wholesaler. And that came with a number of advantages. You were the only one, but you had to supply every single outlet. Now, the highest Bavarian mountain is Zugspitze, which is less than 3,000 meters, just less or short of 3,000 meters. Zugspitze gets 10 Bild newspapers every day, and I make 4 cents based on every Bild-Zeitung sold, so monopoly is not always good. But there's also another drawback affiliated with a monopoly, because you tend to become complacent, you rest on your laurels. You still make money as a publishing company. Back in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, everyone was making money, including us, and we then became complacent. But then we said, well, what could a wholesaler, a monopoly supplier, actually do? What is the USP of such a company? Now, let me be quite frank, because we couldn't really think of many things. So, logistically speaking, we were doing fine, but selling newspapers and magazines, focusing on sales strategies, well, that wasn't really our strength. And then we started looking at a number of things. We then put people first. Now, most of you have already used me as a company. If you've ever sold press items in Austria, well, I'm the only one here in Salzburg. Well, we supply 10,000 news agents with our products. So we put people first in our business. There's Edeka Süd in Germany, and I talked to one of their CEOs, and I told him that he should run our business, our wholesale business, even though he had hated us. He had hated us because we were a monopoly provider who always supplies things too late. And I picked him to become, well, actually the press spokesman of our wholesale business. And then I said, well, what should be part and parcel of this wholesale business? Well, we had 100 staff in Munich, and we were thinking about what actually drives us and what our overall strategy should be. Well, I don't know if you know when you've already used our services. I came to Vienna a bit late. Did you also come to Vienna a bit late? Well, I'm sure that you've read some onboard magazine, supplied by us, by the way, in the lounge, or else after you've done your check-in last night, you may have also downloaded a newspaper or magazine, which is also supplied for us. So How do we get there? By way of coincidence, I'm an early bird myself. One Tuesday morning, well, I called Lufthansa and I said, well, how do you actually get the onboard magazines on board? And we then started supplying aircraft with our onboard magazines. And the wholesale business that I praised was then cannibalized by us. We are a worldwide leader in terms of providing airlines with newspapers and magazines. 180 airports and 50 airlines altogether. So we buy the Asahi Shimbun in Tokyo, for example, bringing them on board. Dubai or an Emirates aircraft, for example. So we reach out to the airports. And in Vienna, at Vienna Airport, we bought 6 news agents because we also wanted to learn more about retail. You may realize that these outlets are part of our group. Now, if you sell newspapers and magazines for just an hour, you learn quite a lot. Holger Bingmann, well, I can give you my email address, so why don't you share your experiences with me? So very quickly we've reached a point where we said, well, that is not going to be the future. We are a world market leader in the area of onboard magazines. But what about Austrian Lufthansa and other major carriers? Onboard magazines, well, they fall by the wayside. Lufthansa used to get 1,100 newspapers and magazines out of Frankfurt, and today it's just 200 onboard magazines. That's it. It's a pity. So you become a world market leader, and then suddenly the market no longer exists. So what did we do then? We said, how about digital media? Well, here too, we started talking with our key accounts. We had interesting discussions in-house, and that's why this afternoon I'd like to talk about cannibalism. Now, we always use the same team doing what we have been doing. What I've described to you is this. We are cannibalizing ourselves. You need a different corporate culture from the past. You need to be able to listen to people. You need to accept mistakes. You need to also say goodbye to a few ideas. Now, we used to have a ban on alcohol in our company for 20 years, but now we don't have this ban anymore because at 6 p.m. you have better conversations if you have a glass of wine with someone or some beer. Now, in order to be able to cannibalize, you need to have a creative atmosphere in-house, which starts with you as an entrepreneur or a manager or executive. If you just buy 1 or 2 startups in Berlin or Vienna, things will not work. You need to live it, and that will then create the atmosphere. A final example, so we moved to something else. We said, okay, no more onboard magazines. The airline said, why don't you come up with a digital kiosk? Now, we had meetings with 32 Lufthansa people, and you know that these meetings involving 32 people are not really creative. So what you see today in Lufthansa and Austrian Airlines, well, that's downloads. And we are market leaders in this area now, and we have shown a lot of commitment in this area. But here, too, we are reaching the end of our journey. Now, we like downloads, PDF downloads. And I'm 50 plus. Because I know that on page 3 there will be an interesting article, or I know where I find certain articles in sales, but that's not the future, right? Now, our key accounts, Emirates, Lufthansa, for example, they've contacted us and they're saying, well, what do passengers actually like to read? Well, they still want to read PDFs, but if you go from Frankfurt to New York, you like to know and get up-to-date information, not obsolete information. Some tourist hotspots that were tourist hotspots a few months ago. You want to have up-to-date information, and that's the next stage of cannibalism. So why don't we get cool destination content? Why don't we accompany our passengers? The airlines know exactly when the passengers go where. They could provide them with a Wiener Zeitung or Dubai magazine, and suddenly they feel connected to the airline because they get this tailor-made offer from them. So they feel connected to the airline, because usually what the airlines do, they just bring passengers from point A to B. So what we've set up in Berlin is a blogging factory. Now, I like the bloggers. Bloggers are the publishers of the future. They produce content. They have a massive reach. My daughter loves bloggers too, by the way. She only likes to buy stuff that's been recommended to her by a blogger. Suitcases, for example. My daughter wants to have a specific suitcase because a blogger recommended a specific suitcase to her. So we have set up this space in Berlin with 80 bloggers. It's on Oranienstraße. It's a very creative space. They produce content. And we're trying to now approach our key accounts, railway companies, carriers, airline carriers, to sell the content to them. So this is a topical development that we're seeing that we have launched in-house. But actually, I was going to talk about other things in my presentation, but okay, I didn't have time to do that. So let me just give you a few pieces of advice. I used to be an entrepreneur, always wearing a tie and believing very much in autocratic structures. I've moved away from this. I now have more time for things that I like to do, such as spending time here in Vienna. Or else I like going somewhere with my bike on Friday. So I now enjoy life more. So let things go, which generates a lot of creativity in your company, I'm quite sure. This also generates a certain hype, a certain creative hype, which is mind-boggling. So why don't you send out positive signals? I mean, I know companies in this category, Red Bull, for example, well, they epitomize creativity, but each and every one of us could also be creative. Now, 17 years ago, I didn't think that I would be quite creative. We are present in 8 countries. We have a headcount of 2,500. And we have a lot of fun, and we are also quite consistent in terms of shutting things down, but we're very, very consistent in terms of looking for new ideas. And now, one final message, my take-home message to you, and that's a car. Just look at this car. What's the underlying idea? By 2025, in certain parts of the world, we'll have driverless cars. Today, we have Uber in Austria, and we supply that company as well as Sixt. So whenever you use their services, you can also download our magazines, including Austrian magazines. So we'd like to find point of sales anywhere so that we can also sell things in a driverless vehicle. And with this, I'd like to thank you for your attention. I've had a lot of fun. Thank you.